Welcome into Heating Up. We are up to episode 6, recording this on December 13th, Monday night, and we have got some new panelists. I'll just let y'all introduce yourselves. Ed, why don't you get us started?
Hey, Ed Santos. Yeah, I've been meaning to jump on here for a little while, but been kind of tied up, so finally freed up and looking forward to joining the cast or the podcast a little bit more.
I think the last time you've been on something is when we were recording about some Aggie basketball stuff on our high school basketball coverage.
It's
People wanted you back. I'm glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. There's nothing more I like than
And I'd
talking
say
basketball.
I'd say your other infamous moment has to be your halftime Auburn basketball experience. I think we'll have to get into that later.
Oh man, I'd like to put that.
Well,
To bring that out.
there might be some people listening that were at that game. You just never know. And then
Yeah.
over here on the top left, we've got Austin Maverick Smith. Mav's been doing some radio stuff and podcast stuff with me for the last few years. He joined the other side where he's on the bench now with the Albertville Aggies. Mav, good to have you with us.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to make an appearance, man. Hopefully make it consecutive. I'm tied up as well, just not living the exotic life like a Gardo.
I got you. We're going to get back in here. Had a big weekend for basketball. I think football season is kind of wrapping up a little bit. And I feel like this was the first weekend that it was all like basketball was highlighted. Didn't y'all think so?
Yeah.
It was nice to watch basketball from morning to the end of the day.
That was a long day. 10:30 Auburn tip off and then 9:00 p.m. tip off. Mav, did you make it through that? Because I know you like to go to bed a little early.
Yeah, I struggled, man. I was a little late to the game, so I had a little fast forwarding I could do. But I barely made it. I was one-eyed as soon as it hit like the 3-minute mark.
Well, before we jump into the games, I kind of just a little headline type stuff. And I guess the biggest one since we talked last has got to be Auburn basketball's NCAA stuff coming back finally. 4 years. This started in 2017, came back, and one misconception I feel like people are, acting like Auburn didn't really get hit. Well, they didn't get hit more. They self-banned last year from the NCAA tournament. They did recruiting bans the last few years. They did scholarship bans kind of themselves. So if you add that all together, they did get hit as hard as anybody has in a long time. Ed, let me throw it to you first. Kind of, what was your reaction Friday? Was it joy that there wasn't another postseason ban, or kind of what was the reaction? Because we really didn't know what was going to happen. I don't even feel like the coaching staff knew till like last week.
I was pins and needles because first thing that morning we get news that there's a decision coming out. We're like, everybody's thinking the worst. Is Bruce going to get let go? Is another postseason ban, especially with the team we have this year? So once it came through, it's really we did shout out to our coaching staff and our team at Auburn to doing the self postseason bans and everything. But it was just a sign of relief.
Yeah, just real quick so that everybody understands. I'm sure we're talking to Auburn and Alabama basketball fans. They know, but not another year of postseason bans. 2 scholarships over the next 4 years while being on probation. So pretty much just as long as you don't do anything else, you're going to be fine. A little bit of I think they said 5% of the basketball budget, and it was only like $5,000.
$5,000, yeah.
I think they're going to have to look back at that. That can't be accurate. Drew, what were your thoughts when you heard the ruling come down?
I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, especially with, it. I guess we kind of figured out, the big question is, does self-imposing stuff really actually help a score or not? You got Will Wade and LSU down there who just
Outlaws.
Going straight at like nothing's happened, and there's more evidence on that table, and looking forward to see their verdict. But, the whole even though you guys weren't going to make a playoff last year or the NCAA tournament, they still took that into consideration, and didn't prolong it longer or anything like that. So smart move by Auburn because it paid off, but especially in a down year when y'all could do that. So it was a good move for Auburn, and it turned out to benefit them.
The NCAA talked about it a little bit. They had the press conference after, and you could ask questions and all that. And some of the national guys were really probing for stuff. Pat Forty wrote a hit piece, and he was probing for things. But I thought it was interesting. One of the things he said was, if this was a level 1 violation, didn't you have up to 5 years of a postseason ban you could do? And they said, yeah, it's 1 to 5 years. And they said, looking at it, they gave credit to Auburn for self-banning before the season started. So it was only like 4 days before the season started, and it was when Sharif Cooper all of a sudden got, NCAA, and obviously Bruce knew a little bit about his team at that point. But Louisville a couple years ago, like in the middle of the season, or was it Syracuse? Like in the middle of the season, they're having a terrible year, and they're like, well, we're just going to ban ourselves this year. I think that made the NCAA mad, and so they gave Auburn a little credit for at least doing it before the season started. I think Auburn gets credit for right off the bat sitting the two players in question, Danjel Purifoy and Austin Wiley, not waiting on the NCAA. They sat them immediately, and then they got hit. Danjel got a year and a third. And Austin Wiley got the rest of the season. I think they get credit. Nobody remembers that, but for going ahead and sitting them. Because if y'all remember, there was a lot of fans and media types that were like, screw the NCAA. Y'all just play them. We'll do something later. But looking back, that was the right move to make.
Was the scholarships, was that 2 over the 4 years, or is that 2 each year?
From my understanding, it's 2 over the 4 years.
Oh, so, I was thinking it was 2 each year that you're on probation.
I thought we were going to be at 11 scholarships instead of 13 for 4 years, but it's actually just 2 total.
Bruce don't fill them anyway. So.
No. So next year, Auburn can have 12 guys on scholarship instead of 13. And then the following year, have 12 guys on scholarship instead of 13 and be done, from what I understand.
Oh, okay.
Was there any?
Wow, that's way less than I thought.
Yeah, I know.
Was there any recruiting restrictions from a head coach or assistant coach perspective?
I didn't see anything extra.
Yeah, Chuck Person can't recruit.
Yeah, for 10 years, Chuck Person can't. He's like training high school kids and stuff still. We've recruited some guys that he trained. We hadn't signed any of them. It's probably
he's still sitting in Auburn. He's just doing it from a different, different avenue.
Yeah, maybe so. But he got the show calls, and then we think it's probably Harris Adler, a guy who was an assistant that ended up getting out of the game completely. That seemed kind of weird, and now it looks like it makes sense. He may have been involved a little bit. I don't know. But apparently he may have paid walk-ons tuition. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Well, that was an allegation, and they said they didn't find enough evidence to say that, but I thought that seemed kind of crazy.
I mean, I guess it's bad in the NCAA eyes, but from like a outside standpoint, it's kind of like, wow, that's a nice guy.
Yeah. Unless you're like paying the tuition of a buddy of a player or something. Like we talked about this earlier with some of our buddies, but back when Horace Spencer committed, he was like the first top 100 recruit for Bruce. It was like the day his show calls ended. Bruce made. You remember there were guys lined up outside the arena.
I was there.
There you
go. I was there at midnight.
Did you see Horace go in the gym?
I did. Horace walked in.
Yep. So he commits that night, and there's also this little guard, and I can't even remember his name, but he committed that night, and everybody's like, "Who is this guy?" Turns out he was kind of on the team for a year, and then nobody ever saw him again. I wonder if that was part of the deal. Is he was going to pay this little guy to
get his buddy on the team?
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. And we hadn't had any other like walk-ons that were recruited type guys. Yeah. Can you think of anything else, Ed, that could have been?
No, it's got to be that.
But they said there wasn't enough. That was an allegation, but they didn't actually prove that. So, all in all, I'm sure
he still got 1 year show calls, didn't he?
Yeah, he's not even in the game. Though. He's not even coaching.
Yeah,
so, I don't know, but and I would have hated to see some of the guys on the team now punished for something that happened 4 years ago that they had no involvement. I just think that's crazy. Can y'all think of any other way that they can punish these schools without punishing the guys that are currently on the roster?
I mean, not outside of like scholarships or
monetary fines. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, or coaches, like you can only to not hurt these players is I don't really see another way.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing I guess we didn't hit on is Bruce Pearl got a 2-game suspension. I wonder how they come up with 2 games. That's kind of random.
So was you Auburn fans worried about the Final Four getting vacated? It was kind of during around that time, wasn't it?
It was after we were already sitting everybody out. I had no worries about that at all. Apparently, like 12 games got vacated.
Yeah, 12. There were some games that got taken away, but that just somebody was saying that just means we get to experience Bruce winning 600 games again.
Yeah, that's wild. So do y'all think the university does that now? Bruce hit 600 last year. Now he's under 600. Do we go back and celebrate again this year?
Hell yeah. I mean, y'all trying to keep that dude for life. Why wouldn't y'all do that?
I'm in. Paint the floor.
Back.
Paint the floor. I'm in. So anyway, good news for Auburn basketball. We still hadn't heard about some of the other schools. Everybody's talking about Kansas and LSU. Mav, let me throw it out there to you. Will Wade, they're just trucking along at LSU, still recruiting at a high level. do you think the findings of this should kind of change how they go about the rest of this? I mean, can you kind of flip it, or are you all in at this point and you just got to keep rolling?
I mean, if you're this deep, you got to keep rolling. I mean, you're buried if you're uncovered. So like at that point, you just got to keep on digging, man. Like if you're gonna get the slap, you're gonna get the slap. At this point, you just got to play to win now.
What if you're LSU though? I mean, do you do anything? Any chance you fire Will Wade or anything?
The integrity, if he has any integrity, he should speak up and say, like I think I may have crossed the line here or there, especially Bruce Pearl, and then Auburn, coming out and saying, putting a self-imposed ban on themselves. I think that it'd show a little integrity about him, and maybe it'd be a lesser punishment for the long run if he were to do that.
Yeah. Didn't they suspend him for a little while they looked into it, and then all of a sudden he came back?
Looked into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't long at all. But also during the Auburn broadcast, Charles Barkley got on there and started talking about that a little bit. He kind of called out Will Wade and all the guys on tape and the NCAA for not talking about him. But
I think a lot of guys are going to, especially after people stepping up and like kind of admitting like, hey, I think I may have been borderline right here. We violated this or that, and pushing through it and taking their lick and moving forward.
It happens in football a lot for recruiting. It'll come out after the year that, Georgia had 25 secondary violations. It just kind of gets swept in the rug. Nobody thinks about it, but you're right. I mean, if you did something wrong, maybe Auburn's proven that it does help because, a few years ago in the football thing, Ole Miss cooperated big time, and then they got hammered, and they were like, we shouldn't have cooperated. So I wonder what they think the difference in that is.
Smaller programs, I think, for one. So, say that we send this guy off and we say he's prepared to go to the league, and then, he was, given some things or, helped out with some things along the way, or persuaded per se. And he gets mad at, the program in general, the coach in general, looking back, some comments, he can come back and fire back at them and, really suffer no consequence at that point.
Drew, do you think the change with the name, image, and likeness, and now people can get paid, possibly changes that, where it's like, this is kind of stupid for us to hammer Auburn for something that now you could kind of get away with? Or do any of y'all think that had any kind of impact?
I think it might have a little impact, but still, if it was wrong then you still should get punished for it, I feel like. So it'll change it going forward for sure. Because I mean, you still can't pay players to come, straight up or anything like that. So you'll still get punished, but I think they'll have a different view on it going forward from now.
Yeah, I'm with y'all there. But anyway, good news that goes right up there for me as an Auburn fan of back in like 2013 when they finally came out and said that we didn't pay Cam Newton or whatever. So I'm all good. I'm pumped about it. Good win for Wes Flanagan. He said he's got the best winning percentage as a head coach in Auburn history, and he was going to stay that way. Stephen Pearl on Tuesday night will be the head coach. I think that's kind of interesting. He said he hasn't ever coached a team above youth league as a head coach. So that's kind of interesting. I hate Riley's not here so we can hear some of his Stephen Pearl thoughts. Oh, yeah. But let's move on. The other news has got to be the new updated net rankings. Drew, I know you were looking at that earlier. We had a surprise that Houston stays at number 4. Do we have any explanation on how this works?
I really, I read off the kind of the standards that the net goes by, last podcast, and I still don't really understand how it works. We kind of talked about how certain teams have maybe heavy quad 3 and quad 4 wins, and like Houston doesn't have a quad 1 win. They're 0-2, but they're 8-0 in the quad 3 and 4. So, and then, you have teams like Bama, who hasn't even played a quad 4 game yet, and they're 4-1 in the quads 1 and 2, and they're at 11. So it's questionable on how it ranks teams. Obviously, there's not a really great way to do it. Everybody's gonna complain regardless. It's kind of why they swapped over to the net. But you didn't really see a lot of movement this week, I feel like, with it. Even with teams that, Houston loses to us and they drop 1, and then Bama jumps 2 with a win over the 4th ranked net team. So
I think the only thing we can draw from it so far is you don't get punished much at all for losing a quad 1 game. I think that's the
Yeah.
only thing that we can sit there and look at when you see what happened to Houston. So, like Drew said, Alabama's at 11, Auburn's at 12. That's kind of ironic, of all the ways this could go for us to be sitting here doing this show talking about Alabama and Auburn basketball and them to be neck and neck 11 and 12. Did y'all see Rothstein's tweet after the game talking about being pumped for the 2 Iron Bowl basketball matchups?
Yeah. I'm
Oh
telling you,
yeah.
We've come a long way, huh?
both programs of the state of Alabama and their best and what they think about basketball is coming a long, long way.
Absolutely.
One of them was talking about how the 2 best teams in the SEC reside in the same state. And, after Arkansas getting drummed and
Yeah, I was gonna ask y'all.
Kentucky
If y'all
going
watch
down.
anybody else a little bit this weekend? So we don't do a whole lot of other teams. I watched the most Kentucky I've seen yet. I think they've got some pieces, but they've got a big guy to Sheepway or something like that. He's really
West
good.
Virginia. He's good.
Yeah, he's
Ty
tough.
Washington was pretty good, and outside of that, it was like I don't know.
I really thought Severe Wheeler would have a better season.
He can't shoot. He can't shoot at
but
all.
He's really good at creating. I know when we played Georgia last year, they weren't very good, but he was really good at slicing and getting in the lane and dropping it off to Kamara, who's at Dayton now, and getting their guys, kind of easy shots and buckets. But
I think Ty Washington is supposed to be like their go-to, not guy, maybe their go-to shooter, or their go-to guard, and I think he only got like 7 shots up. So I don't know if that was
Yeah.
a scheme or if he's just still trying to figure it out as a true freshman. But saw a little bit of the Mississippi State game. I was surprised when I got the glimpse of it, they were beating Colorado State late in the second half, and then come to find out they ended up getting beat. So kind of interesting. I know Bama's got them next week, so that'll be another tough game for you guys.
I watched a good
top
bit of
25.
LSU. LSU's explosive. They're good. They've got some athletes. Darius Days is still there, and he shot the ball really well. They've got a 5-star big man, Reed, I think's his name.
Stephen Reed.
Yeah,
he's a big
6'11".
dude.
He's good. He's super active. And he's not gonna score a lot, but he's like feisty. Like he fights people down there, like kind of what you want your big guy freshman at least to fight,
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the other guard they had that was really cooking, playing well. And then
they got
Eric Gaines.
Yeah, he plays a good bit
Heatin.
for him. Comes off the bench. He was there last year with them.
Yeah, so they got down really big to Georgia Tech quickly early. First of all, Tech's terrible if y'all haven't watched them. They look like they run like a Princeton style offense, and they've got like one guard that's good, and the rest of the team is not good.
It's the guy that transferred from Mississippi State, right?
Yeah, he's from Georgia.
The left-handed guy,
The point guard.
What's
No,
his
we're
name?
talking about the Smith, Davian Smith.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
None
good.
of the rest of them are good. I was watching, and they literally have to pass him the ball every play. Like Josh Pastner and his big old sideburns, man. That was rough watching that. And that was another thing, though, just all those games in Atlanta, and I thought it was pretty. It's just a good sign for our Auburn basketball program that the best atmosphere was at 10:30 in the morning with the Auburn game. Georgia Tech was there later, and there's 2 other games, and it was like looking like those games are in empty NBA arenas, and Auburn
Yeah.
game didn't look like that. So
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
that was impressive. Matt, have you seen anybody else in the SEC this year? Have anybody seen Tennessee much or Florida much or anybody like that?
Man,
I
I
seen
watched some of
the-
that Texas Tech game, and that game was miserable.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
Texas Tech?
Yeah, Tennessee and Texas Tech, they played in the Jimmy V Classic or whatever. And
It was like low 50s.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
listen
it
to
was
Jay
not.
Billis describe it. He was calling the game, and he said it was literally like they were talking about how Nate Oates went to watch his girl play basketball in high school, whatever. And they were talking about how the Tennessee Texas Tech game was worse than watching a high school, like a slow girls basketball game with turnovers and all that. It was rough.
Jeez.
I've seen Tennessee a little bit. Defensively, they're really good. They're going to be a problem. And then I feel like they returned like 3 or 4 starters. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So experience is gonna you play a big effect there. But other than that, man, I do. I think the 2 best teams in the SEC are in state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm right there.
there.
Did y'all see Missouri is like the worst rated in the net
Jesus.
ratings of any
They're
Power
tough
5
to
team?
watch.
I didn't see any of that Kansas game, but I heard it was just a bloodbath, like 100 and something to 60 something.
It
Yeah.
was tough.
That's a
Look,
rivalry too. Like they haven't
I'm-
played in like years, like a huge rivalry.
And
I'm
what
all
about
about
Ole Miss,
for-
man, beating Memphis and then coming home and getting beat by Western Kentucky? Not beat,
Yeah.
but drummed.
They had a couple guys out. I know that Ruffin guy that y'all recruited at Auburn had
Yeah.
committed for a little bit. He's out. He's hurt. He's like their main guy. I think
Has he
as a
played all
freshman, too.
season?
I don't know.
I've watched him a few times and I haven't got to see
He hadn't
him
been
play
playing?
any.
They had some other big guy that was out that was sitting right next to him, but still,
Okay.
The Duke transfer playing? What's
Jamin Brakefield? I think
yeah.
so.
Yeah, he is.
So other than that, I'm excited. We're talking about these teams, and I think the first SEC game around the 28th or 29th, it's Auburn LSU and Alabama Tennessee. So I mean, that's a great opening deal there for the conference. I think I'm glad they put that together.
Is Auburn at home or away?
Home.
Yeah, same.
That's gonna be a good one. So let's move into the games a little bit. Let's jump right out to that Alabama game. So Alabama 83 over Houston 82. It was the late night game in Coleman Coliseum. Good crowd, 10,613 there. That's still only 69% because how big Coleman Coliseum is. Alabama favored by 3, so they don't cover. The over/under was 146, goes way over. Let me throw it to Ed first. You're watching a little bit of that game. What are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts going in, and then kind of reaction after?
And going in, I think everybody was looking forward to a two tough teams going at it. And I think that just translated to the floor. I think there was, 20 plus fouls on both sides of the both teams had 20 plus fouls. So that kind of just the toughness, everybody was getting into each other. So at the end of the day, the biggest thing was the guard play down the stretch. And obviously everybody caught on to the ending and with JD making, 2 great plays down stretch. So exciting game. It's, watching those kind of games from an Alabama standpoint on prime time is different now. It's different to see now, but it's super enjoyable. So good heck of a win for Alabama. And I imagine they're going to build off all these tough games they play early on in the season. Will pay off down the stretch.
So Drew, you probably had looked at Houston a little bit more than the rest of us. Kind of how did they match up given what your perception was going into the game?
Yeah, so that's kind of it was a good I was looking forward to it because from a standpoint of Alabama, playing these tough teams that get into you and make you work for your offensive possessions and scores, that's where we've kind of been up and down. UCLA kind of hit us early in the tournament last year, and we struggled getting good shots, and kind of carried over to the free throw line. So I was interested to see how would we respond to a Kelvin Sampson get up in you, make you work, make you box out, which we didn't do well, and just make you earn everything. And that veteran guard leadership that we've been kind of talking about all season long, it kind of came out in that game. We didn't try to. I mean, everything was played through Quinterly, and then Shaq picked up later in the game, and it just kind of flowed that way. So it was good to see them have to earn their win. And the thing about Houston, man, the way they play, they can bring that every single night. It's all effort, it's defense, it's rebounding, it's it's not one of those 3-point shooting teams where if they walk in the gym and don't shoot it good, then they're probably gonna lose. So it's good to see that you can compete with those kind of teams, because if Houston keeps that same momentum, man, you'll see them week 2 or weekend 2, maybe 3 of the tournament this year. So adding that early on in the season and kind of building from that, we go to Memphis tomorrow, so we'll see how we respond after a tough game like that. But
see what kind of Memphis you get.
What?
See what kind of Memphis you get tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a huge question.
Mav, let me throw this to you. Just kind of one more Houston questions. I feel like I didn't know if every Kelvin Sampson team plays that way, but just the edge and the effort that they played with 100% of the time. This was not a massive underdog game. They're a Final Four team. Yeah, there's probably not a lot of guys on Houston's team that had offers from Alabama or SEC teams. I think they're still probably a little under-recruited. But how do you try to instill that in your team? What do you think is so impressive about Sampson? What does he do to get the guys to play that hard? They played just so hard the other night.
Man, that is a good question. I think they walked in with a chip on their shoulder, especially having, a guard leave to come to us, or guard/forward leave to come to us. So that kind of burned them a little bit, and especially coming to Coleman Coliseum. But, man, in the half court defensively, those guys are balled in every play. They're tough. A bunch of our points came in transition where we were able to get a high ball screen and kind of play off that. But if they slowed us down and stopped us in transition, man, it was tough for us. But for Coach Sampson to get those guys to buy in, man, you better be selling something good, because they bring it every night. And like Drew said, just piggyback off him, that's somebody you're going to see, weekend 2 or 3 in the tournament down the road, possibly a Sweet 16 team. Jawan Roberts had like 13 rebounds, I think, and 14 points. He was 100% from the floor, and like he's 6'7", 230.
He was modern day Dennis Rodman.
He was after it. So kudos to those guys, man. That's a huge win, especially coming off the win from Gonzaga. So whatever he's doing, I want a little bit of info because he got those guys completely sold.
I would love to go shadow for a couple weeks down there. I don't know what they do. They play to their roles so well. Those guys are giving max effort because that's what they did. You know, that was their job on the team. And if Sasser just knocks down a couple more shots, I mean, he had like 25 points, but he took like 25 shots. If he knocks down one more shot, they win that basketball game in Tuscaloosa. It's incredible.
You talk about an easy offense to coach. All you do is tell your guys to throw it up there and go get it. And that's what 3 or 4 on the court do. I saw one clip yesterday with Robertson rebounding. And if he didn't get it, there's 2 other dudes flying in that would have grabbed it and got it, man. It was fun to watch.
But like Mav said,
but it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'd have been really stressed during that one. But like Mav said, that did lead to a little bit of transition probably for Alabama, you know, getting out and running since they were crashing everybody. So a good job there. Let me start defensively for Alabama. I thought Jaden Shackford had a couple really big possessions. What were y'all's thoughts on how Alabama played defense in that game as a whole?
I think they responded pretty well. You know, the thing with Houston, what they were just trying to do is just dribble penetration with Sasser and then kick it out or dump it off to their bigs. And, you know, you saw them get some of that early on and throughout the game in spurts. But I think our guards played pretty well. And our biggest thing, though, was we found out who is our dogs on our team and who needs to get to that level with these guys and trying to box out and rebound. So I thought they played tough. They played hard, and that's why we were able to stay with them. And, you know, it ended up getting the win, but it was a dogfight, and they made us earn it.
I was a little disappointed in my guy Bediako that I've been praising. He was playing hard, but he was like a step behind. I feel like it's like he was having to foul too much to be they were being able to play hard without fouling. I mean, they were physical, but they weren't reaching and grabbing. Bediako had to kind of grab some people. I was a little disappointed there. If Houston had somebody who could score on the inside a little bit, they'd been even harder to handle. Ed, what were your thoughts on defensively for the Tide?
You know, one thing Alabama does really well, or their game, is that they're going to play small, right? Offensively, they're gonna you know, Bediako's out there, they're running ball screens, but if not with Gary, whoever, they're going to go small. So I think Houston had 21 offensive rebounds. So while you go small defensively, you got to be able to rebound. So, you know, it's going to be interesting going down the stretch how that plays out as Alabama does that. Are they going to be able to, you know, stay on offensively that they can, you know, take some of those hits offensively? But 21 offensive rebounds by Houston. But to Drew's point, I mean, they were just throw it up there, let's go get it. So that's part of their game as well. But, you know, defensively solid all around. Is just, you know, being able to put a body on somebody and making sure, you know, who's going to be the more physical team, especially down low when it comes down to rebounding.
Mav, you've been watching Alabama for a while, and Nate Oates, were you a little surprised they didn't really throw anything extra out there? You know, I'd have to go back and watch the game again, but I feel like they stayed pretty man-to-man the whole game, pretty, you know, doing a little bit of switching, but, I mean, it was pretty standard defense. I mean, it was good enough, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, we play a lot of positionless basketball in today's game, and I think that's you know, he kind of wanted to stay there. I think we matched up well with them defensively. Our aggressiveness, we kind of found out, like Drew said, who our dogs are and who, you know, has to step up just a little bit. Like you said, like Bediako on the screens, man, he's just like half a step behind, you know. And I don't know if that's him being a freshman, you know, just like kind of rotating in and like understanding his role defensively, but those guys have to do a better job of, you know, like communicating and finding out, hey, here's my weakness defensively, whether it be guarding the ball, getting beat off the step, because they got a lot of penetration, you know, deep in the paint, and that's where they're hitting most of their shots. And then you got 5 guys that are in the paint offensively and defensively for Houston. And so it's going to make it easy to get beat on the boards when you got, you know, 10 guys on each end, you know, boxing out, you know, crashing the boards, and put some putbacks. But again, we made some plays they didn't at the end because they easily could have went their way.
Yeah, I'm right there. And I think you got to be encouraged that, you know, you didn't play perfectly on the defensive end. And I don't think you're going to see a team like Houston that often. Let's move over to offense a little bit. Drew, I was kind of jotting down the stats of the three main guards, and Shaq goes for 18, and he was 6 of 10, 5 of 7 from the 3-point line. Quinterly, would he go for 17?
17.
7 of 11. JD goes for 10. He was 3 of 4. That's the most efficient that group has played all year. I think it helped get into the free throw line a little bit, but I feel like most games for Alabama this year, those guys have put up numbers, but it's taken them more shots to get there. What do you think about their efficiency and just their play in general on the offensive end?
It's kind of interesting to see. We were kind of, in our group mess, we were just kind of talking about how, you haven't really seen much from Shaq, and then we look down and he has 18 points. So I guess it kind of speaks on how, kind of efficient, as you were saying, that they were. Quinterly, man, if you were just watching that game and wasn't paying attention to box score, you would have thought he would have had, at least a third of our points, just because it seemed like every time he scored, it was big moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either that, the three at the end of the shot clock or a tough finish that he scooped in. There's a lot of big scores from him. And the one thing about JD, man, we kind of mentioned early on in the season how it looks like he's kind of ready for this type of, level of play. Well, now you're kind of seeing it with his skill and is taking efficient shots, making better passes, and that aspect of it, which is really good to see, because it gives you, with Quinterly and Shaq, Bama's a good team, but with JD, that makes them a really good team and tough. Because anytime you have three guards that you can sub in and out and play three at one time and get it and go and get transition buckets or get good drive and penetration shots. It's tough to guard, and it's going to be interesting to watch going forward with how that continues to translate with this and stuff like that. But it was fun to watch.
Anybody having three perimeter defenders that can play at one time and guard those guys is going to be difficult. Not many people are going to have that. Any concern that Keon Ellis had a rough night? I think he was over, didn't hit a shot. Was playing good defense, but any concern there that he didn't get involved on the offensive end?
I don't think it played much of a role, because, like you said, you had Gary, who had he had 19.
Yeah, 19.
We had four players in double digits, with 19, 18, 17, and 10. So, you're going to get that middle guy that's the forward that, produces a little bit more than the other guy, the other not. Because I think Gary and, Ellis both kind of bring that intensity defensively, crashing the boards and all that good stuff. But, he stuck his name out there. He's making he secured a lot of, rebounds that, made possessions and gave us a second chance offensively. And then Gary did the same thing. But I don't think that hurts him. I think that kind of encouraged him. Hey, I need to sharpen up a little bit, especially going into Memphis tomorrow. So I don't think it hurts his confidence much, though.
Yeah, I'm with you.
He did the blue collar basketball thing.
Yeah, he did. He did. Drew, let me throw it to you. The two biggest possessions I feel like of the game were those two kind of drawn up plays for Shaq to come up to the top and hit those two threes. What are your thoughts on Oates, drawing something up for Shaq and him, coming through? How big was that for his confidence? Man,
what a time to get your best perimeter scorer, in the game, or get him shots. And it is and I was watching clips on that today. It was the exact same play, ran back-to-back possessions, and Houston, man, Bama, the whole game was running that pick and roll, and you're either helping off that wing guard was helping pick up the roll, or was that baseline defender picking up the roll, and he just got caught down there with Bediako kind of rolling. And
twice, though. How do you let that happen twice? How do you not adjust after the first one?
That's what I'm saying, man. And as you said, two really big buckets, because, it was close. Houston kind of took a little lead, and we were struggling to get good shots. Then Shaq hits those 2 threes, and it kind of just, left. It wasn't really much breathing room, but it kind of, as a Bama fan, you kind of just said, all right, we're good now. We're back in there. Let's go with it. But yeah, those are 2 really big baskets that we needed.
Ed, any other thoughts on this game, Ed? Just, either front court, back court, any team stat stuff that jumps out. I thought Alabama had 1 block. I thought that was kind of interesting. 6 blocks to 1 on Houston, 10 to 12 turnovers. I mean, it's kind of some weird stats. Plus 9 on the rebounds, like y'all said, for Houston. To win a game, -9 is impressive for Alabama without just like out shooting them big time. It was pretty even on that.
Like -14 in the offensive rebound
21
category.
That's tough.
That's crazy.
I mean, the thing that jumps out again, you lose a game by 1 point and you shoot 57% from the free throw line. That's going to lose every single time.
Yep.
I don't care what happens. You don't win a 1 point game when you shoot 57%.
Another crazy stat was Bam only hit 7 threes. You know, most games when we don't get double figures in threes, we don't win a lot of them. But because they were able to shoot 77% from the free throw line, it kind of offset the lack of threes that we weren't shooting and making.
Yeah,
No, I
but
think
I'm with Drew. Go ahead.
I thought Houston did a good job defensively, like guarding. You know, I don't know if y'all paid attention, but like I feel like every time we got under the free throw line, they started running like traps to the corners to force that long pass out of it, or just like to back out. And that's where, you know, a lot of our threes come, the baseline drive for the pitch and the one more, the skip across. And I thought they did a good job defending it. So that says a lot about those guys, you know, preparing for us offensively, because we do put up, you know, if we don't hit 10 plus threes a game, we're kind of, you know, we kind of live and die by it, our tempo and our pace of play anyway.
I'm high on Houston, guys. Like, I know it's an Alabama show, but I really like that team.
It was fun to watch.
I'll be keeping up with them. I'll be
Hope
picking
they
up
win
when
every
the
other
brackets
game
come
the rest
out.
of the season.
Yeah. Every other game. Yeah.
Now that we're done playing with them.
Ed, anything else?
No, just to piggyback off Mav's point of, I think Houston came in making sure let's run Alabama off the three as much as possible, and that's where JQ was able to be so successful in the paint and those floaters that he loves and getting to the rim. So, good win for Alabama. And it'll be interesting to see how they build off of this going forward.
Yeah, and I want to give Oates credit. You know, coming off the Gonzaga game, week off, I think that was impressive to the team to be ready to play. I mean, I think Houston punches you in the mouth so early that you got to be ready to move, or you're going to get blown out quick. So, impressive there. Good Alabama crowd. It was good to see the students kind of come back, even though school was out late night and all that kind of stuff. So
it's kind of a cool dynamic, you know, coming off the Gonzaga game too. You're playing a Gonzaga team that's not as hard nosed, but they got some players with a lot of skill in their bigs, and Timmy and Holmgren and them.
Sure.
And then you come to a Houston game where not as much skill, but, you know, a lot less block shots because they're getting into your chest and making you either foul or they're getting a bucket. So it was a cool dynamic in watching, you know, last weekend's game versus this weekend's game.
I just think that's Alabama proving they can win a lot of different ways. I mean, that's why you schedule a schedule like they did. And right now, even if you would have lost, I don't think that would have been
still learn where you're at.
Yeah, I think they're fine. I don't think they're going to see anything in the SEC that they haven't really seen so far.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to combine Houston and Gonzaga and create a super team.
Good.
I don't know if y'all discussed it last week, but like defensively, the adjustments that Alabama made where they started fronting, you know, Timmy and with a guard, you know, that's a tough pass. Like we've all been there trying to throw the, you know, the entry pass with a top guy guarding you fronting the forward. But when they put J.D. Davidson on there, it's like, hey, you know, good luck. You know, you got him sealed just above the block. Like you're not throwing it over that guy. And then secondly, before we wrap this up, was it goaltending in the game?
I don't think so. But I will say this. I think the stupid thing of the referees running off the court immediately is the worst thing. Why can they not spend 30 seconds and explain to Sampson, hey, we didn't make a call. I didn't see it. We can't go look at it because there was no call made. Why can't they take 30 seconds and do that instead of running off the court? And I know that Houston should not have done what they did, but you're in the moment. You just played as hard as they did for 40 minutes, and then it goes on a call that you think could have been the other way. Somebody explain to me why the referees can't hang around for 30 seconds and explain it.
Even Nate Oates said that he would have questioned it too. If it would have been reversed, he would have been questioning as well, just because, like you said, you played 40 minutes that hard. You don't want to see you lose that way. So regardless if you're right or wrong, you got to question it.
Yeah, just explain it to me. I get the rule was correct. Just tell me, and so I can tell my team so we don't go kick trash cans over and, you know, whatever. They were like grabbing the referees. I mean, they're going to get fined for that, right?
They should, yeah.
Sure.
But it says a lot about I don't know the player's name, but it said, I saw a little clip of him like cleaning up all the
Shed. He was a stud. I like that guy.
No matter who it is, when you walk out of the building, you know, if you got some guys that act like that shows a lot of character about him. So respect to that cat for doing that.
Yeah, I guess the rule for the referees is in case it would have gone against the home crowd. They need to get the heck out of there as soon as possible. But I just don't understand why they are protected so much. The referees, you can't talk about them in the post game. You can't do anything negative to the referees, and I can't stand it.
Just to clarify, NATO's did talk to the officiating coordinator for SEC and AAC, and they did confirm it wasn't goaltending.
Well,
Just had to
thanks
throw that-
later on. And I'm going to say my one negative piece for Alabama. I did not like NATO standing there with his hand out. I thought that was petty, and that annoys me. And I don't think Oates is going to have a lot of friends in the coaching profession.
Hey, man, I don't know. It's funny. If I was an opposing fan, I wouldn't like it either. But as a cheering fan, that was kind of, it was very petty.
It was very petty.
Hey,
but
you just gotta have one name on your side. That's it.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. But great win for Alabama. Another great just basketball Saturday for Alabama. Let's go into the Auburn game a little bit. You know, such a blowout. We won't go too really heavy into it. Just get ready for the next one. But Auburn 99 over Nebraska 68. I think on that list of the top 5 worst Power 5 teams in the net, they're 5th. I think the worst one was Missouri, and they were 5th. I thought Nebraska played pretty hard. Yeah, I don't know. Auburn was favored by 14.5. The over-under was 150, so 2 easy covers there. Ed, you know, what's the first thing that jumped out to you about that game, other than just the atmosphere in the building? You know, Kevin Durant being there and Barkley being in the building. That felt like a big-time atmosphere. It's a shame we weren't playing somebody a little better than Nebraska.
Yeah, no, the atmosphere was freaking great. Like you said, 10:30 in the morning, and for a building to be as rocking as it was. So that definitely stood out. But I mean, it's just nice, man. That just tells you what Auburn's programs came, because we're supposed to win this game by a lot, and we did. You know, typical Auburn in the past wouldn't have. So it was nice to see them come out and compete. I'm sure, you know, Wes Flanagan had them ready to go, especially with Bruce not being there. And man, they turned it up defensively. I think 16 steals for Auburn, and then they turned Nebraska over 20 times as well. So, you know, they brought it from the beginning to end. So it was good to see. It was good to see it, especially for the guys being fired up to come out and play in front of essentially a home crowd in Atlanta. I mean, we got a lot of guys from Georgia and from the state of Georgia, and some even, you know, right around the Atlanta area. So I'm sure they were pumped to play as well.
Great for recruiting. Sure. Absolutely. I hope they show those highlights to everybody. Mav, I want to throw Jabari Smith question right to you. Jabari had another phenomenal game with 21, 5, and 4. Looked like the best player out there. I know you're a guy who likes those ISO, get on the wing, give me the ball guys. What do you think of Jabari?
Man, he's kind of like Kevin Durantish. Like he really is. He impresses me a lot. The oop that he caught backwards, man, like he's just a freak athlete. To come in and like kind of dominate the game at I don't think he's had a game under 15 points yet, if I'm not mistaken. And
that's probably right.
A couple 22, 21, 17. You know, when you're doing that kind of stuff and bringing that intensity to both sides of the basketball and being a rim protector, you can guard on the perimeter. You know, that's going to go, the extra mile for you for your guys, especially if you can keep them on the floor. So, man, I've watched most of Auburn's games, and I'm very impressed with those guys. It's fun to watch.
I just think, his size and the way he can shoot the basketball, you're always going to get a shot up, late in the shot clock or whatever. I mean, what easier way to get a shot up than get the ball to Jabari? Let's jump into guard play, though. Drew, what do you think of Wendell Green, Zep Jasper, the guards for Auburn? I think I got Wendell going 19 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, a couple deep threes, a couple no-look passes. He was in his element trying to show out in front of some scouts and everybody, and KD in the group.
Yeah, and what a great kind of dynamic the two transfers have been for y'all. Zep brings that defensive presence. He's very efficient with the ball as far as just assist to turnover ratio. And on the other hand, Wendell's kind of the opposite. He's a scoring guard. He'll shoot it from anywhere inside half court. Kind of gives off those Jared Harper vibes as far as shots he's willing to take, just pull up from anywhere. But it's fun to watch. And then you got KD Johnson, who's kind of just been your staple as far as leading the guards in the offensive category, and as far as tenacity and scary looks on his face. So it's kind of cool to watch and see them develop. And then I feel like that kind of helps Jabari too, a young freshman coming in. When you have good guard play that's kind of helping you offensively and you don't rely as much on your freshman, it allows him to grow a little bit slower pace and kind of get his feel, and you're kind of seeing it bloom with Jabari, and it's fun to watch.
It's
Anytime you got a
fun.
6'9" guy that can score from all three levels and handle it's fun to watch.
As fun as this Auburn team is to watch offensively, I look back at the Alabama team from last year, the Auburn national or Final Four team. These teams were so good defensively, and they just took other teams out of what they wanted to do. And then it seems like they just got easier possessions on the offensive end. That's what I'm seeing from this Auburn team is Auburn's possessions are so much easier. They get to their spot so much easier than whoever they're playing against. And I know it hadn't been good competition. They've played a lot of teams that are not so good, but they just take you out of everything you want to do. Ed, I know you love playing a little defensive point guard. Talk to me more about Zep and just kind of the Auburn mindset of we're going to be really aggressive and try to at least make it. We might give up a back cut or two or something like that, but we're going to push you out kind of further. It's kind of like some of those old Duke teams with Coach K where they just like pushed you out of what you wanted to do offensively.
Man, yeah, Zep pick you up 90 feet, and it's going to turn you. His goal is to turn you as many times as possible before you make it down to the others. And to Drew's point, super grateful that Zep and Wendell play for us. But even not just Zep, I mean, KD Johnson gets after it from a guard perspective. He's a guy that can, really put some pressure on a ball handler. And, when you got the opposing point guard having his back and having a side dribble because Zep and KD and even Wendell at times is sitting there, I mean, that just disrupts you trying to get the offensive going. It's just, especially with Zeb being as long as he is. Yeah, he's only 6 foot, but, he's got a long wingspan. So that's been real disruptive. And hopefully going forward, as we start playing more of these getting SEC play, a little bit more athletic guards that can maybe beat you off the dribble. We'll see. We'll see if that still sticks.
The thing I want to ask either of y'all about is, to me, what anchors all that is Walker Kessler and his length on the back end. When a guy can move his feet a little bit and can time shots and block shots, I feel like that gives you the freedom to be able to play like that at the guard position, at the perimeter. Walker Kessler makes it different for this Auburn team, and he's somebody that a lot of other teams don't have. There are some other windows, there's some Zeps out there, but there's not a lot of Walker Kesslers, and to me, he's very, very important for this Auburn team.
100%. When you get beat and you have a 6'10" Jabari Smith and a 7'1" Walker Kessler in the back, to have your back when you may get beat once in a while, that certainly helps.
So yeah, it literally changes how you play, right?
Yeah. And those two are literally contesting every shot. Every shot anybody gets in the lane, they're putting their hand up trying to block.
Two long mobile bigs like that, and then the guard pressure, especially guarding 90 feet from the basket, it speeds teams up into things that they may not want to do, especially transition wise. They can't really attack when you got two guys that can protect the rim the way they can, and then the guard defense is it's tremendous right now, especially 20 turnovers against a not so great Nebraska team, even though you're still busting them by close to 40. You turn around, you cut that in half against the SEC team or ACC team or a good basketball team, 10 to 11 turnovers, you're still in the plus, on that end of it. Now, whether you convert that or not, but I think Auburn's doing a good job of, making a brand, Bruce's brand of basketball and like keeping it alive.
I think you're right there. One thing I was trying to think about this, and because I used to watch those Duke teams all the time I'm talking about, and every now and then some teams would just be athletic and ball against them and get by them, like that Arizona team that blew them out in the NCAA tournament at that time with Derek Williams dunking on everybody. Drew, I wanted to ask you this. You still high school coaching. It seems like when you play that style of defense, it gets, like Mav said, the team out of their offense. So it's not something you practice. You don't practice playing the way that makes you practice. And it kind of shrinks the court in a way where it's like our players against your players just playing basketball. And I feel like if you feel like you've got the better players, that's advantage you. And that's something that Auburn is trying to do right now. How is there a way as a coach that you can practice to play that way? I don't know if that's even possible.
I mean, you can try to simulate in practice, but even in practice, you don't necessarily have your ones against ones. You got your guys, then you got your scout team. So I think the biggest thing is playing teams that play like that early in the season and trying to get, acclimated to that style of play. Even if you only play one or two, you find out your weaknesses against that style and then you make adjustments and go from there with it. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to simulate because like you said, you don't play that style. And then you don't, even if you do, you may not have the athletes that the team you're playing has. So it's tough.
Well, I'm just thinking you're getting ready to run your offense. So, like, Mav, say y'all got a game tomorrow and you're going to go 20 minutes of running through all your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, even at 5-on-0 or 5-on-5, you get to your spots and you run your stuff. If another team can take you out of your spots and your stuff, you don't practice running it from half court. You don't practice, some of that stuff. I think that changes it.
Yeah, it does. And like, I hate to like look back, but like in high school, Drew and I senior year and our junior year, when Edgardo was a senior, we went and played Woodlawn in the Sweet 16 when Edgardo was a senior. We've not seen, we played Hillcrest and guys like that, but that kind of atmosphere, you can't prepare for that. The atmosphere in general for one, but you can't simulate those guys in practice when you don't have them. The 6'10s, the 6'8s, the 6'7s that are just dogs. We ran into Derunya Wilson and the Elite Eight my senior year, and like the first question one of the reporters asked, like Drew Riley and I after the game was, "How did you prepare for that?" And I was like, "You can't simulate that in practice. Like he's a Division I athlete in two sports, so again, like that's just something like you can never prepare for. It's just playing teams early in the season, maybe what Alabama and Auburn are going to continue to do, and getting those big matchups, the big ESPN games, and playing for March, and that's the end goal. So I think they're doing a good job of that right now, putting themselves in situations to be successful later on during the season.
So before we wrap up, let's kind of look ahead just for a minute. Is there anything specific you guys are looking for? Auburn plays UNA Tuesday. They should handle business there at 8 o'clock. But Alabama's got Memphis. We know they've got some talent. They've really played poorly recently. Just before we go, what is something like, is there one area or one player that you're kind of looking to see what they're going to do for Alabama on Tuesday?
I know Colin Sexton will be sitting right beside Penny Hardaway, so that could cause problems.
I was watching clips from that on Twitter today.
Oh man, that was awesome. That clip that'll live forever.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of like what you touched on earlier with Alabama. I kind of want to see Keon Ellis have a good offensive game. He's done big things for us in these two big wins, but you saw early in the season he was averaging over 15 points a game. You kind of want to see him get back and get in a groove on that side of the ball as well, because I mean that's kind of going to be a difference maker in the long run, especially in the SEC play, is having that wing guard knock down open shots and kind of get those tough buckets at the rim too, along with the three guards playing. So getting him back on track would be really big for us against Memphis in my eyes.
I think to me, it's maybe getting another guy to step up. I think it's been like an 8-man rotation now, pretty solid the last few games. I wouldn't mind seeing somebody, even if it's like some foul trouble happens and what's Ambrose Hilton? Can he come in and give you some minutes or just something else? Because I just worry, if a couple things were to happen to Alabama, a couple injuries or a couple foul trouble things, some guys that are not really in the mix at all right now are going to have to at some point the season step up to play. I'd love to see like one guy get in there and have a game, or maybe even Darius Miles play a little bit better. He was kind of out of the mix last game. Just something to look at. Or maybe Bediako a big game, or Noah Gurley shoot the basketball and make some shots. Just somebody who hasn't really done as much, kind of like you were saying with Ellis, but somebody who's really not done as much, kind of step up and have a little bit of game. I'd like to see that for Alabama.
Yeah.
To Drew's point earlier, while Memphis they're talented, they got some big guys down low that are physical. So another test for the guys down low to see, can they respond to some physicality, and, Drew build some more physicality for you guys.
Man, you talk about a test. You got a big freshman coming in, and the 3 games back to back you play him in is Gonzaga, Memphis, and Houston. Talking about trying to get him up to speed real quick.
That should do it. You can't
no rest for the weary, for sure.
Hey, him making the big plays, the big putback dunk at the end. He's making some standout plays when needed.
I mean, dude's out here 18 years old and playing grown men from Memphis who look like they're 32.
I gotta give before we go, I gotta give a plug for my radio station. The Alabama game Saturday will be on Fox Sports 102.9, the Jacksonville State Home Basketball Network. Y'all look out for the Gamecocks. They've played just a really hard schedule so far, and they gotten beat by VCU and Wichita, and just a lot of really tough teams. They've got a gimme type game tonight. Finally, I think LaGrange College.
Yeah.
Hopefully Jack State wins by 20 or 25 and kind of gets rolling a little bit, but they're not bad. So I think they'll compete at least for, 10 or 12 minutes against Alabama, maybe.
Hey, you never know.
You never know. So we'll wrap it up there. I appreciate you guys joining us. Just
Yeah,
want to get
thanks
on here, talk a little Auburn, Alabama basketball. I really can't think of a better thing than heating up. I mean, these two programs are just up and up and up. And
Yep.
we're talking about maybe an on-site location for the Alabama in Tuscaloosa game. Are we going to make that happen?
We can see what we can make happen.
Tuesday night's kind of
100%.
rough.
We
Can
need
we-
get Paul Feinbaum on there too. So come Tampa time, he can get us a station set up beside his on the
There you
breezeway.
go. Can we petition? Can we petition for these games to be on Saturdays and not midweek games? If this is going to be a big deal, I mean,
You talking about the Alabama Auburn games too? Like
yeah.
both of them on usually you got one on Tuesday and one on Saturday, but this year both are on Tuesday.
You know, I was starting to think about it because I was, comparing it to Duke, Carolina, and I feel like those are usually during the midweek too. I could be wrong. I feel like it's a TV thing that they think the midweeks they need a bigger game to make the TV numbers, and maybe we're getting to that point. I don't know, but I feel like Auburn always plays Kentucky on a Saturday. Like, why can't play Alabama?
Anytime Duke and North Carolina's in the same conversation with Alabama and Auburn in basketball, I'm here for it.
I'm with you. I'm
That's
with
big
you. Well, y'all, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to kind of check up on everything going in before Christmas. It's heating up.